Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
And as part of our US Open coverage, Joel and I are taking a little AG1 challenge of our own, and we'll be updating you on our AG1 journey and how it's improving our health and wellness. So Joel, we've got started. How are you finding it?
I'm not going to lie, I was a little bit nervous, I was a little bit skeptical at first, but I got my flask, put one scoop in, added water, shook it all about, and do you know what? It actually tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I was surprised because normally the healthier something is, the worse it tastes. But for me, what I like is I've got a cupboard of vitamins that it's been able to replace. So that's just one product I can take in the morning.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. Check it out.
Please take your seats quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Tennis Weekly with Joel, Kim and Chris. On today's US Open Round 2 catch-up, sponsored by AG1.
Wozniacki stuns Tsitsipas.
Tsitsipas falls to Stricker.
And last year's finalist Casper Ruud is sent packing.
Chris, today is the 31st of August and we are here to catch up on round 2 of the US Open at Tennis Weekly HQ. It's all very exciting here because although I am recording from London, you are actually on site in Flushing Meadows. That's probably why our listeners can hear a little bit of ambience in the background. Just talk to me. What has happened? Where are you? What have you seen? It's all good.
It all happened very quickly, didn't it, Joel? 1 minute, I was recording the preview, having no idea I was coming to New York. The next minute, I'm sat watching Venus Williams on Arthur Ashe. I don't know how it happened, but now I can update you that I am just behind Cam Norrie's court, and Ostapenko is also very nearby, so I'm a bit wary that I don't want to get angry that I'm interrupting her play by talking too loudly.
Well, I mean, I feel like the US audience, the US spectators in Flushing Meadows, from what we've seen so far, it almost doesn't matter that you're creating a bit of noise near the court. It's just part of the scenery, right?
It really is. I think it's so strange. Obviously, you've been here, Joel, so you know, but no one stops talking during points. It's a constant ambient noise. That actually means it's quite hard to tell if, like, Danielle Collins is hitting the ball hard or not. It's really strange. You don't get that thud that you get on a silent Wimbledon centre court or the French Open.
I mean, it is. I think I'm correct in saying this is your first time at the US Open. As a fan, what has been the atmosphere like being there? You know, all the British success we've had over the last couple of days. When you stepped foot into the site, what were your first impressions?
Well, firstly, I'd like to apologise to all Andy Murray fans because I have been the kiss of death. The only Brit that I've seen is Andy Murray, and he lost. So I'm going to stay away from the rest of them. I might not watch Norrie after this, but I'm not having the best track record there. But in terms of the fan experience, I would recommend coming straight from the airport because it does break up the journey into Manhattan, and I knew that from last time when I've driven past it. So I got a cab straight from the airport. So I said one long day that ended in Arthur Ashe starting in Copenhagen. So for me, I mean, it couldn't have been easier in that respect. But in terms of the overall fan experience, people are up for a good time here. You know, it's cocktail hour all around the clock. So
what's the drink of choice? What's the drink of choice? We've not got Pimm's. We've not got strawberries and cream. What do we have?
Oh, I'm going to have to do some research. Judy Murray was posting about it. It's some sort of a tequila-based cocktail.
Oh, okay.
Which I think has... Is it some... I'll have to double-check.
It's not a Hugo, is it?
No, I'll check and I'll get a proper recipe back to Kim.
Maybe you need to suggest that
time.
to the US Open bartenders.
Yeah, I think that would go down really badly, and they'd probably charge me $35 for it,
yes.
like everything else here. So, yeah, I'm saving my pennies, and maybe I'll have a beer here and there.
Well, I mean, it's great to hear that you are out there on behalf of Tennis Weekly doing the fan experience. We, of course, are going to talk about some of the tennis you have seen so far. I have been staying up late as well, watching from home. And before we talk about all the action from round 2, I just want to address a couple of things we weren't able to talk about in our round 1 catch-up because of time zone, New York, London, etc. And you already touched on it. Venus Williams... you were there for this. Venus Williams against Greet Minnen. Greet Minnen double breadsticking Venus Williams 6-1, 6-1. I know that Venus Williams...
A tennis ball's just bounced out. Almost hit me. Listeners, I cannot make this up. So, yes, Venus Williams did get breadstick, but I'm under attack from maybe that was an Ostapenko... Someone wasn't happy about me talking about Venus Williams in such a way, but I mean, what happened there? Explain what was going on. Was the crowd in just a state of shock? I mean, I was very surprised with that scoreline when I woke up next morning. Yes, do you mean explain about the scoreline or the ball that almost hit me? I'm okay, for anyone who is concerned. Thanks for your concern, Joel. No, what happened was, I think Venus had a lot of health issues coming into this, and as we've talked about previously, she is towards the end of her career, and I think for her it was a goal to play. I'm not sure that she was able to make it competitive, and for me personally, I think when you reach a point where it's that difficult and there are the doctors that are involved to try and get you onto court, if you're not able to play at a level of competitive tennis that you should be able to, I think as much as I relished the opportunity seeing her and went straight from the airport to try and catch a glimpse, it's not the same as watching her in her heyday. It is almost a farewell tour in some ways, it feels like, and I think even kind of her biggest fans, and I count myself as one of them, would probably hope that she didn't continue if she wasn't able to be competitive against a player who isn't necessarily known to be the giant killer, although she did beat Muguruza at Wimbledon last year in Greet Minnen, so it's a big shame for her that she wasn't able to do more, but at the same time she provides some iconic moments, some iconic fashion, and she's Venus Williams, so who's not going to give her a wild card?
That is very true, and I feel like I'm going through the same tribulations at the moment with Andy Murray, because the performance he put out against Grigor Dimitrov, which we'll get on to, really that was up there, I feel, with one of the worst slam performances of his career, and I feel like I probably could say the same about Venus Williams, but I mean, let's say get on to kind of talking about Andy Murray and all the Brits. Let's just revel actually in the British bonanza that was round 1 singles, 7 out of 7 wins. Again, who saw this coming? The fact that none of them dropped sets either. This was a fantastic opening couple of days that, again, we didn't really get to kind of revel in on our round 1 pod because it was still all in motion.
Yeah, I think it was the first time since 1977 or something like that, which actually feels quite recent when you think about it. I can't name 7 players that were active then. No. So, I mean, maybe Sue Barker, I could definitely name her. Sue
Barker was just in the draw 7 times.
Yeah, maybe it was, yeah, I mean, probably, and she probably won it. But no, I think what was particularly impressive about it was that it was all on one day. So when you were talking about it, the live results were happening, and normally I think all British fans will concur, we don't often win in straight sets, and even Murray won his first round in straight sets before he then lost in straight sets in the next one. So it was great, and I think when you look at where British tennis kind of was, especially the women's side of the tennis, I mean, just a few months ago, it's amazing how far they've come, and they've got some fantastic results that do answer some of those critics, and we have been known to question at times if we're performing as well as we should, so they've definitely answered that question, and some fantastic results from the British number 1 and British number 2.
Which result for you in that first round from the Brits stood out as the most fantastic of all those achievements?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would probably say probably Jodie Burrage, actually.
Yeah, I agree.
She didn't have phenomenal form coming in, and she needs to be on for it to be a good match for her. And she
Blinkova's ranked, I think she was like 40 odd spots above her, and I think she also acknowledged she felt the pressure of the fact that she was fully aware that 6 other Brits had come and won, and she was like, well, I can't let the side down.
Yeah, and I mean, Jack Draper came out of retirement for this almost on his. I mean, that's a bit harsh, but no, and he's through to the third round now as well, defending those points from last year. So I think one of my highlights of the pod last year was when Kim had to say, Jack Draper makes it a night to remember, but it looks like he might again. And this time, I mean, all of the results have been impressive in that first round, and the second round, it's not been 7 from 7, but no one's put, well, actually, apart from Andy Murray, everyone's put in a good performance.
Definitely, and I mean, we have had already British success in round 2, so let's actually start with that. And as you alluded to, Jack Draper, he is into the third round. He defeated Hubert Hurkacz today, 6-2, 6-4, 7-5. Hubert Hurkacz maybe a little bit under the weather, but this was a great performance from Draper, a player I personally thought shouldn't have played the US Open because of the injury troubles he's been through recently. It feels like every time he steps on court, he's really putting his body on the line, and I'm almost nervous if he's actually going to make it through.
You recommended him to skip this one, Joel.
Yes, I know, exactly. But he played so well against Hurkacz, who is can be such a formidable opponent. And even if he doesn't look 100%, with the serve and the 1-2 punch that he can deliver, when it is his service games, it's still quite a tough opposition to face.
Yeah, I mean, I put him in the Raducanu camp of when they're fit, they can beat anybody, or have a great match against anybody, really test them, and he did so well. And for him, it's so important to get it done in straight sets. He talked about the physical issues, and he did. It got a bit tight. The second set he was up a double break, and he didn't get it done as quickly. Actually. Yeah, exactly. So he must be very pleased to get it through in 6 sets in 2 rounds.
I mean, with Draper, is the feeling like his tennis is so good at the moment? Actually, there's almost this feeling he needs to get it done in 3 sets because we just don't know how long his body is going to hold up on it.
Yeah, I mean, physicality, the side of things. We've seen with Murray being a tall guy as well, it took a while for him to kind of get the physical strength that he needed. So I don't think it's too much of a concern at this point. But I mean, the way that he plays, he doesn't want long rallies anyway. So it would be a bit odd if we were seeing him play, all these 5 set back to back. He's no Carlos Alcaraz in that sense. He can grind you down. He needs to almost hit you off the court.
Yes, I agree. And I love the fact that you've just got the staff transporting things around you. Wheels are turning. I can hear it on the pod. There's also a gust of wind as well. Is it quite windy there today?
It is quite a breezy day. I mean, it's very sunny. But I mean, the humidity's dropped, the wind has come in. So I'd say bring a light jacket, you'll be fine. But Joel, I remember in Paris, I almost had clearer audio. I found a fantastic spot in this almost like sound booth to record on site. So here I'm just trying to make those noises you think you're hearing. They're just me banging the table to try and make it seem a bit more earthy. We'll try it.
Yeah. Right, I mean, we did have a win for Jack Draper. We also have had a win for Katie Boulter as well, who's into round 3.
And on court now in the doubles.
And she's on court now in the doubles, well, exactly. But in the singles, she came through in 3 sets, 5-7, 6-1, 6-4 against Wang of China. She's been in unbelievable form this year, has amassed a pretty impressive record coming into US Open, took out Caroline Garcia, but Katie Boulter stopped her in her tracks. Really tough match for Boulter. It could have really gone one way or the other, but yeah, Boulter through to the third round. This was a very impressive result from her.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I think for me, losing that first set against someone with the expectation, I didn't think she'd come through it, and she really problem solved. So those matches might not have gone her way had she not had the belief that she has this year, and her rankings going up and the results are there to match it. So of the second round matches, I think for me that's the really impressive one, because she didn't panic at all. She responded, and that's what kind of makes some of the best players and what makes the top 50 players. So I was really impressed by her.
I mean, she had set points in that first set, and she had first strike opportunities but failed to take them, and I did wonder how she was going to respond. But the fact that she came out, put that to one side, and then steamrolled her opponent in that second set 6-1, I think it just showed her mentality and her her belief that, right, I can put that to one side. Yes, it's disappointing, but let's move on. And her opponent really just didn't have an answer until that third set, which was a little bit more competitive.
Yeah, and in windy conditions, we've seen Boulter struggle sometimes. It can be a bit difficult because she's a big hitter, low margin, and it seemed like she was able to manage the conditions really well. So I think for her, coming through like that, she's got to have a lot of belief going to the next round, and who's to say that she can't make an even deeper run here?
I know. I mean, she's in a very nice part of the draw, you would say. Peyton Stearns
Opening up, yeah.
in the third round. I mean, she's hit 68 winners in 2 matches, which just shows, I think, what we already know in terms of her kind of ball striking capabilities from the back of the court. And I do think, the way she plays does suit the courts of Flushing Meadows very, very nicely.
Wow, 68 winners. That's a lot more than Murray. He's 16 today, so at least she's hitting enough winners for both of them.
I mean, just talking about her ranking, I think this result puts her on the cusp of the top 50. Interestingly, I spoke to her earlier in the season at Surbiton, alluding to her ranking and where she could go, and this is what she had to say about it. And you're just talking about your ranking, that being one of your targets. What is your goal in terms of where would you like to see yourself at the end of the grass court season in terms of those?
Look, I think it's easy to put numbers on it, and it's not ever been a focus of mine. Of course, I want to be 50 in the world, but I have to be realistic at the same time. We have an opportunity with Wimbledon having points again to hopefully pick up some points, and I think I'm just going to cherish each week that I play and really hope that I can gain some momentum. I think, last year I didn't play Surbiton, I didn't have a chance to, so I'm just grateful to actually have played 4 matches this week. I think that's a huge step in the right direction after playing a lot of tennis recently.
I'll just repeat that for you, Chris. She said, I want to be 50 in the world, but I have to be realistic at the same time. I mean, does this mean, with the results we've seen from her at the US Open, she should be looking beyond, or resetting what she feels is realistic given where we're at in the second half of the season?
I mean, such a marked change from the Billie Jean King Cup in terms of her expectations, and it seems like almost without the expectations, she's got herself there, and she's live ranking 50 right now. So that must be an incredible moment for her, and I think she's someone who everyone has known has the talent, a bit like Dan Evans before he really made it big time, but injuries or different hiccups along the way, and she's managed to do it, and let's just hope she can stay fit, and next season she can start that as a top 50 player. That would be really incredible.
That would be amazing. I would still, do you know what? I just wish, I still feel like we get into this pattern of just talking about Katie Boulter at Billie Jean King Cup, at Grand Slams, where she does put on a show, and I feel like she really loves a big court, but I feel like it's those in-between passages that we still don't see enough of her, and I sort of challenged her and said that, in a pod, during the grass court season, and I still feel like we're in that situation that although she's up in that top 50 spot, she should be on the tour, let's be honest, like week in, week out. We still don't really see it, do we?
That's true. I do think there is a problem with some of the British women in terms of not playing as frequent the tour as they should, not taking some of the less glamorous spots in a WTA 125 and doing what Maya Sharif does best. But in terms of Katie, she was out there playing. I liked it, playing in ITF 80 out. I think it was in Japan in a 100 in Korea, or maybe the other way around. But she was out there, and it's such a big difference to going from that to the third round and having picked up her first WTA title. So, I mean, unbelievable from her, and let's hope that she can kind of become a real sort of constant presence on the WTA at 250 and 500 level and above.
And I mean, another British lady who will have ambitions of playing regularly on the WTA Tour, Jodie Burrage. She lost today to Aryna Sabalenka. Very tough matchup, world number 2. I was interested by this match because Burrage had like a similarly kind of big match, I would say, at Wimbledon against Daria Kasatkina, and it just didn't go very well for her. I don't feel like she handled the occasion like that well against a pretty handy opponent. So I was interested to see how she would handle this, Arthur Ashe assignment, and basically see how she got on. And I think at the end of the day, she didn't really put her foot wrong, but she just came up against the Sabalenka, who lived up really to kind of world number 2 in the world.
Yeah, she did. She played a pretty solid match, but she's not the best mover. She is a big hitter, but she's playing against probably the biggest hitter on the tour. So a good effort, didn't embarrass herself at all. Will be a big learning curve, and let's hope she can do some more in the future.
And I just want to mention, Chris, Sabalenka's round 1 match, that ended in a little bit of controversy because her opponent, Zanevska, she represents Belgium, is originally from Ukraine. Sabalenka was at the net expecting a handshake. Zanevska just went straight to her chair, didn't give the handshake, took Sabalenka by surprise. What did you make of that? That was the last match of her career. So in my head, I was like, that's quite an interesting way to finish your career. To me, that almost is like finishing your career on a sour note.
Yeah, I think, and I've seen kind of reports that she has shaken hands of Russians previously, that this hasn't been a complete no handshake policy. So for me, I do think that, and I've been quite critical of, when Sabalenka sort of hangs over the net waiting, and she knows handshakes aren't coming. But for this one, I don't think people were as aware, and she must just think, oh, here we go again. I'm at another slam, and no one wants to shake my hand again. So I'm sure she's pleased to have managed to manoeuvre to that one, and let's just hope that if there is no handshakes in the future in some of these matches, that they're a little bit more well managed and that people are much more aware, because that's one thing, and I mean this with love for the crowd here, they don't have a clue what's going on in a tennis match. So and they're perfectly happy to boo anyone for anything. So we could have a bit of a situation. I mean, poor Dominic Kupfer, who had to retire, the people next to me were booing as loud as they could, and he injured himself in the first game of the match. So sympathy is not something they have here. They want tennis, they paid for it, so they want a handshake, they should get it.
And I do appreciate, it probably was a bit confusing. You see Zanevska, Belgium on the board, you're probably a little bit confused. Okay, why, didn't she have a handshake? But because she is Ukrainian born, she obviously felt like she wanted to kind of stand by, her compatriots like, Svitolina and Kostic, and show that kind of solidarity. So, it was a little bit interesting. I maybe would not have done that in my final match of my career, but, fair enough to her. And finally, I almost forgot, I was so wrapped up, I feel, in the British success today of Jack Draper and Katie Boulter. We need to talk about Andy Murray. I'm not going to lie, Chris, you were there for this match against Grigor Dimitrov. I am an Andy Murray fan. This was ugly. This result was probably bordering on one of the worst slam defeats he's had in a long time. Arguably, I would say, in his career. Did it feel like that when you were watching it live?
Yeah, I mean, it did, if I'm honest. He was out of ideas. So many mistakes, and Dimitrov was just slicing everything back, and Murray wasn't able to kind of take that role as the aggressor and kind of hit the ball hard enough and hit through him. It was pretty painful because it looked like a foregone conclusion, and there wasn't a change of tactics. There was a little bit in that third set where he tried to take the ball earlier, but I don't think he was kind of prepared to, play the rallies that long and to have to hit the winners, and he didn't pull the trigger quick enough. It was disappointing, I have to say. And Joel, I mean, the last time you were here, you saw him pick up the trophy, is that correct?
I have been back since, but
okay.
Yeah, I've obviously seen him on that court, 2012, defeat Novak Djokovic for his first Grand Slam title. And again, just going back to talking about Venus Williams at the start, it was a result a lot of people would look at and say, he's got a tremendous heart, he's got tremendous belief, he's got tremendous fight in him. But I think the worry is, for a player like Murray who doesn't know when to quit, the argument is to say it leads to these situations where people will say, should he have really played that match, or should he really keep going if he's not going to be competitive against someone like Grigor Dimitrov?
Yeah, or you have to change your game. Wozniacki's come back and she's hitting the forehand a lot harder, a lot flatter. She's turned it into a weapon, and the difficulty is, you have to finish the points more quickly the older you get. And not saying that anyone here is old or beyond the point of being able to play tennis, but you can't run around like that retrieving points and play those long rallies and be drawn into them with a player who is more physically sort of fit, I would say, at the moment, because at the end of that rally, not only might he have lost it, and that has the negative effect on the scoreline, but also on the mental side of it and the physical side. So it was kind of the worst matchup I've probably seen from Murray, in terms of him kind of not being able to do anything that brought about some magic, and it was a real shame. But credit to Dimitrov, the tactic was right. Slice, drag the points out, and then when Murray kind of is forced into a sort of a difficult position on the court, hit a great passing shot. It was pretty exemplary, to be honest.
It was surprising because Dimitrov was pushed hard by Alex Molcan.
He almost lost,
Yeah, he almost lost in that first round, and I thought Murray was going to, make him pay, be the fresher of the two, but it felt like it was the opposite. And again, similar to you, I was impressed with the game plan that Dimitrov brought to the court. I felt like he kept deliberately a lot of the balls low. His slice backhand was so low. I mean, his slice backhand was a real nuisance, I think, throughout. And he really attacked the Murray serve, particularly at the start of each set. It just felt like we were kind of waiting, I think, for Murray's serve to get broken. So I think Grigor Dimitrov had, he came out, he did what he wanted to do. And I think probably what helped with that was the fact that he is now coached by Danny Valverde, who was Andy Murray's former coach. So I wonder if there was a little bit of insider knowledge of how to beat Andy Murray that was maybe passed on to Dimitrov.
I mean, it was the perfect game plan, wasn't it? Keep the ball low. It's a real challenge for the footwork. You have to get so low to that ball. You have to make the preparations for it, and a lot of those slices were out to the backhand, so even harder for Murray, to get his feet around it with the hip replacement. And it was super smart. It felt like he was forcing Murray to be the aggressor, and he didn't really have to do anything apart from put the ball back into court, not with the slice. And the perfect tactic in any players who are playing Murray in the coming weeks or months, that's what I would recommend doing, is watching this match.
And we've still got a few more Brits to come. Cam Norrie is on court at the moment, isn't he, Chris? I think he's got set points in the first set against
I'm waiting
Sue.
to hear the cheers. I'm right next to it. I haven't heard them yet.
I'm hoping we could just hear the cheers through the pod.
And I'm right next to the court, Joel. There's something wrong about that, but nope, still going, that rally.
I mean, we've also got Dan Evans versus Van der Zandschulp as well. We were going into round 2, 7 Brits. What for you was a pass score in terms of out of 7 going through to round 3?
I'm looking for 3. I think half of the courts I'd set at 3 for them. And at the moment we're on 1. Yes, I need Norrie and Evans to win in order to hit par.
Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I mean, maybe, who knows? We'll see where we're at by the end of the episode. I mean, there have been some other results and some other matches as well to look forward to. And one of those is Andrei Rublev versus Gael Monfils today, Chris, which that has the potential possibly to be match of the day, I would say.
I'm shocked. I think it's on Grandstand, is it? You need to tell me this because I need to make my way over there at some point today. But that is the ticket I'm after for later. I think I bookmarked that at the start of the week, that in Kvitova versus Wozniacki, which we'll get to a bit later. I mean, we've had some pretty exciting sort of second round and first rounds. There's been some pretty marquee matches that have been on display so far, and this promises to be a good one. Just a shame it's not kind of under the lights. It might be under the floodlights, but not under the lights of Arthur Ashe, when I think that really could have set the biggest stage in tennis alight.
I can confirm it is on Grandstand, so I expect to see you later, because certainly that will be a treat. Elsewhere today, we've had Samsonova come through, Qingwen Zheng as well. Yannick Sinner and Taylor Fritz have also won in straight sets. Chris, just a word on Yannick Sinner. He's brought the Gucci bag out,
yes.
But I noticed the straps. They're meant to, I believe, show support for Ukraine.
Right.
But to me, it comes off as a little bit as a Gucci times IKEA collaboration.
It really does. It looks like they've seen the memes, which of Holger carrying his IKEA bag, and then it's Yannick Sinner carrying his Gucci bag. I feel like it's almost like a brand mashup, like something you'd put into, some sort of a virtual reality machine, and that's what's come out and plugged out a ChatGPT situation. But I mean, goodness.
Do you like it? Do you think it's a step on, an improvement from the showing at Wimbledon?
I mean, I'm not sure if I was Ukrainian, I'd think that was necessarily the best way to show your support. But if I shopped at IKEA, they've recently opened one in Copenhagen, and if they stopped something similar, I'm pretty sure I'd go and pick it up. That's all I can say on it, Joel.
And Chris, just a final word on John Isner. His career is now over. Lost to Michael Mmoh in round 2. Ben Shelton and Chris Eubanks, I believe, were in attendance. And what a fitting end, wasn't it? He ended his singles career on a last set tiebreak.
I mean, that is rather fitting, but it is a shame that he lost it, obviously, kind of the king of the tiebreaks himself.
With 2 sets up as well.
Yeah, that's going to sting, especially against someone who hasn't had that sort of experience ever before. I want to clarify, how do we say Michael's surname? Are we saying it Mo? M-O? Or what are we going for there?
It's Michael Mo, I believe.
Mo. Okay, cool. So Michael Mo, I think he obviously did very well to overcome him, but I mean, Isner's going to be wishing that he got one more chance, because I reckon him versus Jack Draper would have got onto a night session on probably Armstrong. But still, a fantastic career, more aces than anyone else ever, I believe. Just not on his final day, but nonetheless.
It is a shame, isn't it? I mean, he had match point. You could have seen it would have been a very fitting way, I think, to go out against Jack Draper, potentially in a night match session. So I could have seen that, but hey ho. I mean, he's served over 14,400 aces in his career, so he can take that home, but certainly a stinging loss to end on that I think will probably stay with him for quite some time to come.
Yeah, it is definitely a big shame. I was just going to say I've just been joined at my table by a couple of members of the NYPD, and I thought they were coming to ask me to stop recording, but they're just having lunch. Quite a late lunch over here at 4:35, but we can continue recording.
Ooh, well, okay. Well, we're going to take a quick break now, but do join us in the second half, where we will be taking a look back on all the action from day 3 at Flushing Meadows. So do not go anywhere. Our US Open coverage is sponsored by AG1. AG1 is the daily foundational nutrition supplement that supports whole body health.
If a comprehensive solution is what you need for your supplement routine, then try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free AG1 Travel Packs with your first purchase.
Go to drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. That's drinkag1.com/tennisweekly. Check it out. Welcome back to the Tennis Weekly podcast, sponsored by AG1. And now we're going to move on to day 3. Well, I say we're going to move on to day 3. Actually, we're going to finish wrapping up day 4. Chris, we had to stop because you were so desperate to get to Rublev Monfils, which was on grandstand, packed grandstand. Were you able to make it in and find a seat? Because it didn't look like there was a lot of room left.
No, my dedication to the pod meant that I got there a little bit too late to get a seat, but I did get to kind of take in the opening moments of that. And I mean, I've never seen that court that packed since I've been here. And as far as Grand Slam tennis goes, I mean, is there an equivalent of a packed grandstand? It was mad, not a seat to be had. So I didn't get to watch the match. But the question we put out, and I think Joel, you also asked this question on Twitter, was this the right scheduling? It did seem a bit odd when we saw it initially, and we talked about that earlier on.
I know, because you think, Rublev's a fan favourite, Monfils is a big entertainer. I wondered, whether it should be on Louis Armstrong or Arthur Ashe. I understand that, those tickets are not cheap either, and you need to almost kind of spread your talent to make sure that it feels even, I guess, across all of the stadia. But I did wonder whether it could have been maybe promoted to who knows, maybe a night session match, or even just a match on Ashe or Armstrong, get more fans in. Yeah,
definitely. And I think the way that it works on Armstrong is that if you just have a grounds pass, you're able to go and watch the matches in the upper tier is completely unreserved. So it is a great grounds ticket. And I mean, they would have filled that easily given how much attention was there. And, maybe it should have swapped with Sinner, Sonego. Sinner is a big draw, but these are 2 big draws. And I think we know based on the scheduling that having some of the players who are maybe on towards the end of their career, like Stan was lighting up court 17. We had Murray on Arthur Ashe, and you feel like fans love to see it. So maybe that would have a bit more of a draw than the Sinner match. So I would question it as well, and then maybe would have got a seat, Joel.
Well, exactly. Maybe you should have questioned it, and then someone going out, you can take their seat. But it was a good result for Rublev, who I think has had a few iffy results over the North American hardcourt swing, but seems to be back in Grand Slam mode. He came through against Gael Monfils in 4 sets, 6-4, 6-3, 3-6, 6-1. I mean, you were there for a little bit and then you moved on. What else did you see for the rest of the day? Because I had my eye on Sofia Kenin versus Daria Kasatkina. Kenin really should have won that match.
Ooh, that was tough. Yeah,
she was doing so
Kenin.
well, a set up, and it looked like she was going to be seeing that out in straight sets, but Kasatkina is such a fighter. We also had Ons Jabeur as well come through in another tight battle against a very handy Linda Noskova. Greet Minnen as well, continuing her great run of form, and Jessie Pegula as well in straight sets. Did you catch much of the women's action, or were you sticking to the men's action?
Well, I did get to see Cam Norrie, having heard sort of the noise from his court, so that was nice. I saw a little bit of that, and that was pretty straightforward in the end. He was playing very well. I caught a glimpse of Dan Evans. I watched a couple of sets there where he turned it around, and he was pretty agitated on court. I think he was just annoyed with the first set.
What went on with that first set? Because after that, it seemed very plain sailing.
I think he was just quite irritated, to be honest. It was a time when the Isner final matches were on the court next door, and then it was Sock's final match and Coco was on. So, I mean, a lot of people were watching the match on the other side, so they could actually see both courts from where I was sitting. So I think he was just kind of a bit finding it hard to settle in that first set, but he played brilliantly. And then, yes, I did stick to the women's match. So I went and watched the Ons match. That was on at the same time as the Kasatkina match and the Pegula match. That was very late over on Grandstand after the Rublev match. And I mean, Ons, if she's not feeling well, she certainly isn't getting it done quickly. That was a bit of an epic over there. But I was super impressed with Noskova in terms of her talent. I mean, she's a lot taller than I thought she would be, and fantastic off the ground, great sliding into the shots, which is not something you see a lot of the tall girls doing. So Ons escaped luckily there, and I think when we talked about how her kind of slam season would end, we thought maybe it would be a little bit of a letdown there, but she's finding a way to win, and that's what Kenin couldn't do last night. So getting a win at this stage of the slam is all you can do, really.
I feel like we spoke about Ons Jabeur in our preview, and you're a little bit hesitant to kind of give her your backing off the back of the Noskova result. The fact that she is finding a way to win ugly in these earlier rounds, is this giving you more confidence that maybe Ons Jabeur could live up to what she did at Wimbledon, or do you still think like she needs to go up a few more gears in order to make me believe a bit more?
She definitely has to go up through the gears. I haven't seen her play live since, I think it was since Rome last year, where she didn't play very well against Maria Sakkari and then turned it around. And it's a similar sort of thing, but her off the ground, I think her game is way better than it was. And she hits the ball so cleanly and very differently to how a lot of other players play. It's such a natural looking shot. So I just think it's all about whether she's able to play her game on the day. And we've talked about this before, that it is kind of heart and a sleeve tennis. And for me, I thought there would be a bit more of a hangover from Wimbledon in terms of whether she's able to kind of pick herself up, have the motivation again. Let's do it again. Let's try and make the dream happen. And it seems like she's building her way in, and she really wants to be here, and she's fighting for every point. It just hasn't been the cleanest tennis so far, but we all seen like how she's able to turn up in some of those big matches. You were at the Sabalenka match, and I mean that was tennis from a different planet. So she can go through the gears. It's just, will she go through them in time?
Yeah, I agree, and I do wonder if we almost need to see her against like a player with a similar sort of ranking to her, and maybe that will bring the best out of her. But I think it is a good sign though that she is winning ugly. But yeah, she definitely needs to step it up. I mean, just before we do go back to day 3 and talk about Stefanos Tsitsipas and Casper Ruud, I just want to mention a couple of the other men's results we had. We had Daniil Medvedev come through Chris O'Connell from Australia in 4 sets. I want to bring this up, Chris, because I did see on social media Medvedev and the US crowd were having some back and forth once again. I saw 2 ladies with some beers in hand. They were just sort of walking, ambling towards their seats. Medvedev not happy about it, and muttered something towards them. But what I quite liked, true American fashion, they responded, and one of the spectators blew Daniil Medvedev a kiss. So I feel like there's no love lost there between the crowd and Daniil Medvedev, but it's so great to see, I feel.
Yeah, I think he's obviously had a bit of a history here, but I mean, it sums up the crowd. I mean, it's almost like you're there to entertain them and they're here to have a good time. So I think it can get lost in translation when, it comes to people moving around the courts.
It's not Wimbledon, is it?
It really isn't. It's almost like they're kind of a gladiatorial arena, and outside of it, you're at kind of like a Wetherspoons.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's, to me, that sounds like the best.
But an expensive Wetherspoons, though, Joel.
Yeah, I know.
I did look it up. $22 for that signature cocktail here, the honey juice.
I hope you're not expensing any of that to the Tennis Weekly podcast, because I think we'd go bankrupt very, very quickly.
We should have told me that before I got here.
But let's look back on day 3 now, because there were some big shocks on the men's side, particularly in the top 8 seeds. Stefanos Tsitsipas and Casper Ruud both crashing out. Let's start with Casper Ruud, because you watched a bit of this match. He's seeded 5th here. He was finalist at the US Open last year. He lost in 5 sets to the Chinese world number 67 Zhang. Zhang. I just want to call him, my nickname for him is Triple Z. Triple Z.
We're in America, Triple Z,
right? He got the biggest win of his career. I think he's a bit of a prospect. I mean, he's got great serve, big power from the back of the court, but this was disappointing from Ruud. He's now lost to 9 different players this year, ranked outside the top 50. This season has definitely been a come down from the highs of last season. Yes, he has reached a Grand Slam final this year, but regardless of that, do you think like this is just another example of how his season hasn't really probably panned out the way he would have wanted?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case, and the difficulty is it seems like he wasn't gearing himself up for a great year. I think in press he said it wasn't the year he'd hoped, but he was pretty honest after last year. I have to prepare myself for a tough year, and
is that the right mentality to have though? Like going into the new year, fresh start. Should you not be looking to kind of kick on as opposed to kind of being like
2 finals, let's win one? I
kind
agree.
of go, I'm going to go into a lull period now. I've had my peak and now I'm going to have a trough.
Yeah, it's definitely an odd one in that respect, and I would say it's also quite unusual. The preseason he was in the kind of the rougher tour of South America, I believe. So he actually did his preseason after the Australian Open. So there's definitely lessons to be learned there. And I think that when it comes to, overall, how he'll look at this year, I think he maybe has been a bit hampered by the expectation that people have of him. And he did mention kind of all the tennis Twitter, all the expectation and all of the commentary around him, because he didn't have any form going into Roland Garros, then he reached another final, and then it's very hard to know what Casper kind of is going to turn up. As far as his game's concerned, Joel, I mean, he's obviously got the game. I mean, I saw him at Boston. I've seen him play multiple times this year. He is a fantastic player. It's just so surprising. Like, why does he lose to these players that he's clearly much more, well, not necessarily talented, but clearly is much more highly ranked than them?
I mean, looking at his last 8 Grand Slam results, I know we talk about the lack of consistency I feel he shows. This is what it reads. Round 2, final, round 2, final, round 2, final, round 2, round 2. How can you make sense of that given he's such a quality player? I can't find a reason to understand like the hot and cold that he so evidently has blown over the last 2 years at Grand Slam level.
I honestly can't really understand it either, especially because if you look at his actual strokes, he's very technically competent. There's no sort of technical weaknesses there. It's not like he's kind of a Tsitsipas where he will make unforced errors. His shots sometimes do break down and he'll miss some of them, and then he'll make some fantastic shots. So it does feel like it is a little bit on the mental side, but I think he does have a great attitude when it comes to losses, but maybe he's a bit too ready to kind of accept that you don't always win matches against players who are ranked below you, but it feels like he maybe has allowed himself a little bit to not necessarily expect himself to do something massive this year and win a slam, because if you don't really think you're going to do it, belief is the most important thing in tennis.
And just before we move on to Stefanos Tsitsipas, Casper Ruud was of course defending big points here. It looks like he's going to be in a really big battle now to get to the end of season ATP finals. Do you expect to see him there?
I'm not sure he's going to complete the season, if I'm completely honest. I think it has been a very difficult season for him. It's kind of been one which started with a real peak and then it's kind of dwindled out a little bit. We can talk about whether there are kind of distractions on court, off court. We've had coaching changes. He's obviously happy in a new relationship. But it doesn't necessarily feel like the results have corresponded with the different coaching changes and changes in his personal life for the better. So it could be a case at this stage of his career that there is a little bit of maybe it's a letdown kind of at the fact that he hasn't been able to kind of win a slam, and obviously some of the next gen are coming through. It is surprising because he has got the game. We talked about it with Casper as well. They have the game to win slams. It's just not necessarily the mentality that's required and the unwavering sort of self-belief.
And another top 8 seed that went out was Stefanos Tsitsipas, also in 5 sets against Dominic Stricker, the Swiss world number 128. Again, similarly kind of confusing here, I guess, because Stefanos Tsitsipas' record at hard court Grand Slams, Chris, at the Australian Open, he is 121, lost 6. At the US Open, he is 1-6, lost 6. Again, what is going on there in terms of Tsitsipas? Is it the fact that the US Open is at the end of the season and it's a long season and that's having an effect on him? But why do you think he's going out also and not fulfilling his potential at a slam? I feel like he should be doing a lot better at.
Yeah, and just to clarify, listeners, I actually just answered the last question for Tsitsipas, so I'm happy to say it again, but I definitely got confused there. But no, I think it is a case that, kind of as I said, that the nature of the game, it's so mental, but in terms of the actual side of the US Open, it doesn't lend itself that well to kind of the players who mix up their shots a lot. I think, like someone like me talked about this, Ash Barty, her coach said that she'd never be able to win there, but I guess maybe it's a bit different this year because we just saw Grigor Dimitrov slice his way through a match against Andy Murray. So it's hard to know what the conditions are really doing for Tsitsipas here, but we've seen this with a few other players where they don't get the great results here, and there's always slams in places where you don't bring out your best in your tennis, and it just might be one of those places for him.
Yeah, and it was an interesting tweet I read from Christopher Clary, who is New York Times tennis correspondent. He suggested that Stefanos Tsitsipas and his career is at a crossroads. He's 25 and a 2-time major finalist, happy in personal life, we see that with Paula Badosa, and has clarified coaching situation with father in the background, although I feel like that's a little bit up in the air now with the reports that he's dumped Philippoussis again. But new generation led by Alcaraz continues to impose itself, and he needs to hit another gear soon or be left behind. Do you understand those sentiments? Do you feel like we're in a really delicate moment for Tsitsipas, given what we've seen before, him not being really there at the moment? Do you feel like there's this sense that he could be left behind by the generation, I guess, below him? Players like Alcaraz, Sinner, Rune as well.
Yeah, the hunger is real with the generation. If we say generation below
Generation
him,
Z.
It's
Generation
years,
Z.
5 years maybe, yeah, whatever it is. But he's not millennial. No, I think it's a case the hunger is so real and they're playing some great tennis and it's getting harder. You've got a very kind of strange situation where you've got players now playing into their late 30s who are still picking up slams and kind of having great results at slams. So you're competing kind of above and below in the age bracket, and there is always a risk of that if you haven't kind of got that win early on like Carlos has done. And I think that's probably true for kind of Zverev as well. There's a few people who are in that similar sort of camp, and for me, I think that I would never say that someone's opportunity is gone. I think there's a risk that this next season has to be a big one, and he has to really decide what he's looking to do. And I don't know, will Tsitsipas get a slam, Joel? That's a tricky one, right?
Yeah, and if he does, it's not going to be at the US Open. I don't think it's going to be at Wimbledon. I can really feel like he's only got 2 bites at the cherry at the moment, and to me that's either the French Open, who he's obviously come painfully close there against Djokovic, and then the Australian Open as well, where he's got a great record. So feels like he's really well set up arguably for the first 2 slams of the year, but come into the second half of the season, I know he got that title in Los Cabos, but ATP 250 on hard. That's not good enough for a player at Stefanos Tsitsipas's level and ranking.
No, it isn't. It really isn't. And I think it is probably, you think that final, same in a similar way for sort of Zverev. And if you don't get that, Dominic Thiem, if you do or you don't get that title, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have a successful rest of career. But it is what everyone wants. Everyone wants a slam. Emma Raducanu obviously got a slam as well. And after that, it's hard to back it up. And if you don't get one, it's hard to chase. So unless you're winning multiple slams and making it look as easy as Djokovic does, it definitely doesn't get any easier, win or lose.
It is almost like the longer it goes on, the more it becomes a thing.
More pressure, yeah.
The more pressure, we saw that, I think, with Wimbledon and on Jabeur. She's now been in, three Grand Slam finals?
Yeah,
and
yes, it is. And
you can see, as I say, the pressure there. And arguably maybe Stefanos Tsitsipas and even Casper Ruud, maybe even on that path. But they are both out. I mean, we did have Tommy Paul come through in 5 sets. Jiri Vesely is also through. I wanted to bring that up, Chris, because he holds a 2-0 head-to-head record against Novak Djokovic. And with Casper Ruud and Holger Rune out, and the draw seemingly getting easier and easier for Novak Djokovic, you can tell I'm clutching at straws here in thinking, are there any challenges? Are there any barriers for Djokovic to get to another final?
Well, the head-to-head doesn't lie.
It doesn't lie.
Would you say he was the favourite in that one? I think he's probably the favourite every time he walks onto the court, but especially at slams. I mean, if it was kind of in, I don't know, like in his home tournament in Serbia, sometimes he hasn't always kind of got the job done there. Maybe it'd be different, but winning 2 sets against Djokovic is a very different feat to winning 3. And I mean, winning 1 doesn't seem as hard as it used to. We've seen him drop sets here and there, but I don't think he's going to win 3. He'll want that head-to-head to turn around, though, because you don't want people retiring saying, I have a winning record against the best tennis player that ever lived.
Very true, very true. And the French are doing well as well. Adrian Manarino through to the 3rd round. He's having a great season. Benjamin Bonzi as well, taking out Chris Eubanks in 4 sets. So the Frenchman...
That was my pick, Joel.
Well, here's your pick. So
they're dropping like flies.
I mean, moving on to the women, though, we did have straight sets victories for Coco Gauff against Mira Andreeva and Iga Swiatek as well. But we need to talk about, Chris, one of the results so far of the tournament, Caroline Wozniacki against Petra Kvitova. A lot of people writing Caroline Wozniacki off going into this. I could just tell by the collector set predictions. So many people, including ourselves, I think, had her going out in round 2. But she defeated Kvitova 7-5, 7-6. What did you make of this result? Because, as I said, I don't think anyone was really expecting this.
I mean, I was courtside. I had some fabulous tickets for this one, and this was really a match that I wanted to make sure that I was on Ashe for. I think it was just a case that she was really just so on song, and I did kind of predict, I think we all predicted that she probably wouldn't win this one. And it is a case so often that you don't know sort of what Petra Kvitova is going to turn up. She hasn't got the best record in New York for Petra. But the key thing for me about Wozniacki is that her serve was phenomenal. And that forehand, she is hitting the ball. It's no longer that push that sort of sits up. And it makes you wonder, if she'd have made the adaptation to her game to be more aggressive early in her career, would she have more slams? Because she was really piling the pressure on with that forehand, and normally it was just kind of a get it back in court sort of shot. And I mean, I was blown away by just how assured she was and how it felt like she'd never been away. And it feels like, I mean, maybe she needed the break, but also if she hadn't had the break, I mean, would she have picked up something else? Who knows?
Do you feel like aggression and more aggression to her game is the one thing that she has brought with her comeback? And has that surprised you? Because I feel like before, maybe she was a little bit more of a counter-puncher type. But as you said, maybe she's showing, particularly with that forehand, that she can play a brand of aggressive tennis that arguably maybe wasn't there in her career pre-comeback.
I think it is making kind of all the difference. I think being aggressive and kind of taking on matches is the way that you win them these days. I mean, it counted that as the Dimitrov result, but Murray did try and take on that match. He just wasn't able to get it done. The ball was on his racket in many ways. And I feel like Wozniacki has come back with a mission. You know, she has come back not just to get the ball in the court, she's come back to win slams. Clearly, that is her goal, and she's so focused on what she needs to do, which is play even better than she did before and play more aggressively. And it is delivering. I think a player like Kvitova previously on a great day could maybe have hit her off the court if you were feeding her, for example, you know, that soft ball in the mid court. So I think she has added aggression to her game. That is the big difference, because that backhand is rock solid. She can run for miles. That's not changed in the time that she's had away. She's as fit as ever. But it's the mentality, I think, where she really is so driven to do this, and her game is kind of demonstrating that.
And hopefully, yeah, she's going to be rising up the rankings, maybe to a point that she doesn't need wildcards in the near future. One other player, Chris, I just want to talk about before we look at the rest of the action, as well as previewing today's play. Daria Saville, who played Iga Swiatek, you tweeted that without injuries, she is a top 20 player. I just want to get you very quickly, 2 minutes. Why do you think that is?
My elevator pitch on Daria Saville.
Yes.
Well, I love her tenacity. I think that she has so many great kind of shots to her armour. I think she's a great mover. I love her slice. She does mix up the pace really nicely. She uses it to kind of great effect to neutralise points. She's also a great competitor. I think we've seen her play so many 3-set matches where she kind of finds a way to win. And against Iga, a player who is obviously the form player, the world number one, the defending champion, she wasn't at all intimidated by it. And just a couple of poor shot choices where she went for kind of a bit of a higher, loopier ball, cost her that second set. Otherwise, it was highly competitive. So for me, she just has that sort of the grit and the game that can consistently cause top players problems, but also help her to beat players that are ranked below her. So that's my pitch. And she does have a super cute dog called Tofu, so that's something else that I quite like about her.
Yeah, she is such a personality off the court, but yeah, I think she's definitely bringing a more serious brand of tennis onto the court. And although she obviously, you know, Swiatek still was able to get it done quite easily. Yeah, I hope Saville can stay fit.
It wasn't simple though. It wasn't simple.
Yeah.
It wasn't a breadstick or a bagel, and obviously Iga started in that form, so she made it work for it. Very true.
I mean, looking at play for today, lots of Americans on Arthur Ashe. We've got Tommy Paul against Davidovich Fokina. The battle of the comebacks, Caroline Wozniacki against Jen Brady, Mertens Goff, and then we've got Zher and Djokovic as well in that night session. Where are you looking at today, Chris, in terms of matchups you would like to see? I don't think you're going today because you want to save yourself for the Brits tomorrow.
Yes.
But any matches that take your fancy on Ashe or Armstrong or even on the outside courts?
Well, I mean, I'm a big Taylor Townsend fan, and I loved the fact that she got that win against Haddad Maia. So for me, that was the match I was thinking, should I get a ticket and come and see that one? I think that would be really good, entertaining tennis from both of them, because they both are so exciting to watch. I think Tommy Paul's going to have a test. I think that would be entertaining. Yeah. And then the Rybakina, I mean, she's barely hit a tennis ball so far against Christea, who loves the big stage. I mean, who's going to come out of that one, Joel?
Tough one. I could maybe see Christea going
I can see an upset.
for an upset there. Yeah. She's been playing some very, very good tennis. I've also noted Iga Swiatek. She's got her token Louis Armstrong day session match against qualifier.
Had two.
She had two. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what the big debate is at the moment, is that this doesn't happen to other sort of top players who are number one. I mean, she can't get an Ashe billing.
Well, maybe it's what, 2-3 tokens in a row. Sorry, I didn't even realise that. But yeah, she's got Kaya Juvan, the qualifier, Manarino, Tiafoe. Yeah, there's lots of interesting matches. Ben Shelton, Aslan Karatsev as well. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Before we end though, we need to just very quickly talk collector set, because me and Kim have given our predictions. Some of them have already been bad to shocking in my case. You need to help us out. What predictions are you giving us for the 6 picks? Alcaraz, Tsitsipas, Paul, Vondrousova, Mukova, Wozniacki.
So technically, can I change them now?
No.
Okay. Right,
I'm banning you from doing that.
Okay, I did send them ahead of time.
To save my face, basically.
Well, I do think that Alcaraz is going to win. I think Tsitsipas was going to get to round 3. I thought Eubanks would take him out, so that was already wrong. I've never announced them when they've been wrong already, Joel. It's actually quite soul-destroying. Tommy Paul is still on for a quarter-final. Vondrousova for a 4th round. I think she's looking pretty good for it.
Yeah, I think she's looking better than round 4, but yeah.
Yeah, I think Townsend needs to take out Mukova for me today to save me. And then Wozniacki's already done far better than my expectations of round 2. I was silly to question it, but yeah, I think collector set, it's going to be who does the least badly, Joel.
I absolutely think you're right there, and I'm already nervous about the slam spoon of shame, but we shall see. But we're going to end our round 2 catch up there. Listeners, I hope you've enjoyed our latest episode of the Tennis Weekly podcast. We did a little bit of live on-site ambience, which I hope you really enjoyed, and we've been back in the virtual studio for the second half. So I hope you have enjoyed all the coverage. Remember to subscribe to us to stay up to date on all the action still to come from Flushing Meadows at the US Open. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all major podcasting platforms out there. And if you like what you're hearing, then make sure to leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.
You can also follow us on social media and see all of the updates from New York, and you can email the show as well. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube at Tennis Weekly Pod. You can purchase exclusive Tennis Weekly merch at etsy.com/shop/Tennis Weekly Podcast. You can email the show tennisweeklypod@gmail.com or check out our website tennisweekly.co.uk.
And we will be back next time at Tennis Weekly HQ for our round 3 US Open catch-up sponsored by AG1. So I hope you can join us for that. But in the meantime, it's goodbye from Chris.
Goodbye.
And it's goodbye from me. We'll see you again soon.